Robin Flynn and Matt Gilmore sitting in for Aaron Rand this week. Time for our Tech Corner with one of my very favorite people in the whole wide world, CTV tech analyst Carmi Levy. How's it going, Carmi?
Oh, it's going amazing. You are way too kind, Robin. I'm so glad to be able to get back and chat with both you and Matt.
Hey, Carmi.
Definitely been too long. Love speaking with you both.
Awesome. I want to start with this UK undergrad story. I mentioned it before the news. Nearly all UK undergrads are using AI in their studies, according to a new report. Now, I remember when we got the internet, I was in grade 9 when we got the internet at home for the first time, and it was considered cheating to use the internet when you were doing your homework, to be looking things up. They wanted us in the libraries instead. And I feel like the conversation surrounding AI is very similar to the conversations we were having around the internet 30 years ago.
It certainly is, and if you speak to school administration, they're usually the most resistant to any new technology as it moves into the school environment. Yet, students they're young, they're tech savvy, they're curious, they're willing to roll up their sleeves and make the mistakes and figure things out. And so they are the ultimate early adopters when new revolutionary technologies show up. And this data comes to us from the Higher Education Policy Institute in the UK. It shows that as of now, 92% of students say they've used generative AI tools. I think that number is a little bit low. I think it's closer to 100, but whatever. And they're saying that 88% of them have used it for exams. So almost everyone's using it to study, and the vast majority of them, 9 in 10, are using it for exams. And what's amazing here is they studied this. They ran this survey last year as well. So in 1 year, it has gone up because a year ago, it was only 2/3 who said they were using AI tools, and barely half said they had ever used it in exams. So in that short amount of time, to see this kind of adoption and this kind of steep adoption curve is absolutely stunning. And I think it sends a very clear message to schools. You can't be banning this forever. You got to figure out how to incorporate it into your curriculum. And you have to normalize it, just as you've normalized laptops and the internet and smartphones and all these other technologies. The time for banning AI, it's over. You're not going to get away with it any longer.
Well, it's also a tool that people are using at work and in everyday life now, and so it's something that students need to be taught how to use, when to trust it, when to not trust it, when to verify, that kind of thing. So it sort of makes sense that it be incorporated in some ways into schoolwork.
Yeah, tool is the perfect word to describe it, Matt. And, where else are you going to learn those best practices to prepare you for what you're going to encounter in the outside world when you finish school and launch a career than in school? And so, to me, that's what schools are supposed to do. Their mandate is prepare today's kids for the world of tomorrow. And so if you're busy banning AI and not allowing them to use ChatGPT, how are you giving them those skills? How are you helping them figure it out? It's all about adapting. Just because you've used certain teaching methods in the past doesn't mean that those same teaching methods are going to be valid going forward. And I say this as the husband of an elementary school teacher. We've had these discussions at home. She's incorporated these technologies into her curriculum for exactly the same reason, because otherwise you're doing a disservice to your students.
Now, Google is planning to stop using insecure SMS verification in Gmail. So this is like when you try to log into your email, your Gmail, and you get a text message on your phone with a code and you have to enter that code. Lately, when I try to log into Gmail when I'm not at home, it tells me to open the YouTube app on my smartphone to confirm that it's me. But, this two-factor authentication stuff, I know it's secure, Carmi, but it drives me bananas.
Yeah, and there's always that trade-off between security and convenience. And of course, there's a reason why people use the same password on every system and never change it, which they shouldn't, but they do, because they think it's more convenient. At least then they won't be locked out. And so we've seen SMS or short message system, text messaging, used as that second factor for years. For most systems, it's been the default. And it sends you this code, either a 4-digit code or a 6-digit code, and you enter it to prove that you are who you are. But we've also seen just how vulnerable even that method can be, because text messages are not encrypted. They're wide open. They're subject to the security of the phone carrier. And in many cases, we've seen phone carriers drop the ball on security. Some of the most significant cybersecurity incidents or hacks or frauds have been through this SMS verification. And so Google, instead of switching to using a QR code, where basically when you're asked to verify that it is you, if you want to reset your password, for example, you're going to have to scan a QR code from your phone. What this means is that certain kinds of attacks like port out attacks or SIM jacking, those will no longer be viable. It forces criminals to up their game, and it makes it harder for you to be compromised using this method. Does it make us 100% secure? Absolutely not. Are we still going to grumble about convenience? We certainly will, because that's just what humans do. But, if it keeps us from being compromised by ever more savvy cyber criminals, it's certainly something worth doing. And we've been sounding the alarm on SMS-based verification for years, and it's good to see one of the largest tech companies in the world finally saying, okay, we're going to put it on the calendar, and we're going to switch completely away from this technology, later this year. Actually, by April, we should start to see this moving in. You're going to start noticing it on your devices and on your services. So it's a good thing that Google is doing this. Expect all the other major tech companies to follow in fairly short order.
Well, meantime, Carmi, Apple, the we will never build a backdoor company, says it's killing its iCloud end-to-end encryption feature in the UK.
This is a huge story. It hasn't gotten a whole lot of attention here in North America because it's happening in the U.S., but, it often starts there and it kind of migrates its way here. And so the long story short version is the British government is updating its law enforcement protocols, laws that dictate what police forces can and cannot do. And they're requiring, and it's part of what they call their Investigatory Powers Act, and they are going to be they're recommending that technology companies be forced to build in what's called a backdoor or a master key into their encryption protocol. So basically, if the government wants, or if law enforcement wants to be able to crack into your phone and read your encrypted content, your encrypted data, the government now requires that to be in place. They're telling Apple, you'd better put that in place. Apple, of course, has long treasured privacy on its devices. It sells its iPhones and services largely based on the fact that they're more secure than anything else on the market. That's their core of their marketing. And Apple has very famously refused in the past to allow law enforcement and government officials, particularly the FBI, to hack into devices as part of their investigations. And so what Apple is doing is saying, okay, you're going to require us to build a backdoor into our encryption technology. Well, then we're just going to remove our encryption technology from the UK entirely, end-to-end encryption. If you have an iPhone in the UK starting later this year, it's going to be removed. It will not be accessible to you. Basically, Apple is taking its ball and going home and pushing back against the British government, which was pretty draconian. Would we care about this most of the time? No. But look what's happening in the U.S. with the way government is working is essentially being deconstructed. I would be terrified thinking that the same thing could happen in the U.S., that the federal government in the U.S. might be able to look into my phone without any kind of judicial oversight. So not having this technology capability in place is a really important win for any of us who still value privacy, and I think we should be applauding Apple for drawing a line in the sand.
I just want to ask you very quickly, sort of in layman's terms, because I'm listening to a lot of the tech jargon that you're using, just so that we're clear. By removing, though, the end-to-end encryption feature, does that mean that things you do on your phone are no longer encrypted?
Largely, yes. And so if you opt into encryption, so let's say you want to use encryption on your data, you want to secure your photos, you want to secure your notes, your bookmarks, your voice memos, things like that. If you had turned it on, it will no longer be available to you later this year. However, for the stuff that's encrypted by default, like health information, passwords, financial transactions on your device, iCloud messages, those are not affected. The encryption will still apply, and there will be no backdoor. And so it's not a complete removal of encryption technology. It's only a partial one to avoid the draconian efforts of the UK government to essentially allow themselves to stand over your shoulder as you use your iPhone. So Apple will introduce other technologies to secure the data, and they've committed to doing that, but they're not going to allow themselves to be pushed around by the UK government.
Carmi Levy, CTV tech analyst. Make sure you're following him on social media and look for him on CTV News Channel. He's there all the time. Thanks so much, Carmi. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Great chatting with you.